Welcome to another episode of the Early Years Learning Hub podcast. My name is Jackie Ward and I am the founder and managing director of the Early Years Learning Hub. This is one of our episode series that is called Practice Sharing. And this week is a little bit unusual as I don't have a guest, it's just me. And the reason why I thought I'd do this episode sharing is to share my approach to programming. And that is because it's a question that I get asked often when I'm talking to other teachers and educators about how I manage different things and how it's done. So I thought it might be an interesting episode for you. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Firstly, let me preface what I'm about to share is based on many years of experience and continued and consistent evaluation and critical reflection of the effectiveness and the efficiency of the way I program. So it's not something that I just came to overnight. It has taken some time and it will continue to evolve as my knowledge, understanding and practice changes. So I think finding the ideal way to program is not a destination but a journey. I also have, had the ideal opportunity, I guess, to become really familiar with legislative and quality requirements in my policy roles. So that has given me sort of, I guess, a really sound knowledge to reflect on whether or not my approach meets the requirements and to be able to articulate that in ways that I would feel comfortable to if someone asked me to do that. So I get it that not everyone's sort of in that space, but also I wanted to call out that I've worked within my team to critically reflect together on our approach and to compromise and collaborate and decide what we'll do. Having some consistency so that it's an experience as a whole service, but not doing things exactly the same. So that's kind of a little bit of context, I guess. But yeah, all of this experience and this journey has really helped me be able to articulate my approach really confidently and communicate confidently how it meets the requirements. So whatever your journey and whatever you're looking to improve on, make sure that you do know that it aligns with what's expected. And that way, in case an authorised officer asks, or more often than not, it's the person who's asking me, how do I justify that? So, it's a question that you'll get asked, I guess, when you're thinking about this process. So I know this is something that people are really keen on socials to always ask for people to share their approach. And I always think when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that would be way too long an answer for me to explain that. So I guess this podcast is a ways to explaining what I do, but I do worry that I'm going to bamboozle people and confuse you with what I'm talking about. But we do have some courses that I'm going to talk about at the end. So if you'd like to learn more about what I'm talking about, you can learn some more in those courses. And there's also some of the templates that I'm talking about in here included in those courses. So let's start with the written program, because there is a legislative requirement for a written program, and that program should or must be based on the learning frameworks and support children's learning in relation to the learning outcomes. So those are the legislative requirements, and they're also then followed through in the quality area requirements as well in quality area 1. So you may have components that reflect an emergent learning or children's voices, but there's a need to be recording and presenting something that you're intending to teach. So a lot of people ask questions like, well, we just do spontaneous learning, or we use floor books to document our learning. So that is a tool, or I call them project books, where I, record children's learning as we're doing it, but it's definitely something that I've pre-planned. But we do have a section in our program to record those incidental, spontaneous, opportunities that come up for that curriculum that kind of emerges as days go on and specific interests occur. So also to give you a bit of context, I work in a preschool with 4 and 5-year-olds, and it operates in a school term. So that gives me, I guess, that I'm going to be planning and programming and using cycles that reflect my context. So I have a written program that covers 5 weeks. So we do 2 programs per term. And when I first started at this preschool, the teacher was writing a daily program, and then I said, why don't we think about working with a fortnightly one? And I know for myself, I was putting so much on that program that I was always having to carry over. So we talked about it, reflected on it, thought about the requirements, and yes, there is no requirement for a set time frame of a written program. So we proposed the idea of trying 2, covering a 5-week cycle, knowing, as I said, that we can capture that spontaneous responsive learning that happens, that we have an empty box in our program template. So yeah, that's been working really well, and I've been happy. I'm always an advocate of working smarter, not harder, and if there isn't a requirement for something, then don't bust your pennies, work with something that works for you. So my program template reflects the assessment and planning cycle in terms of, like for groups, in terms of the rationale, why am I planning this learning or teaching approach? So we might reference things like, oh, it's NAIDOC week, so we've got a particular focus on, Aboriginal people's history or culture. We have daily experiences as well, but we might be doing something with our local school or whoever. We might have family input, so families might have mentioned that they're interested for their child to work on whatever, and we incorporate that. We might have children's interests, we might have carryover items, and we might have specific things for whatever reason. So that's the rationale section. And then there's a section that talks about the planned experiences, so or provisioning, so including things like learning goals, and I just reference for groups the key components as they represent the learning that I want everyone to do. So I don't reword them, I just put them in there. Specific teaching strategies or how I might engage children. I might note specific strategies for different children. The specific provisions or questions that I might ask, so those specific strategies. And there's a section that includes all of the things I just mentioned for things like group experiences, indoors, outdoors, transitions. We have a section where we talk about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander sustainability and healthy lifestyle kind of in a section, because we want to make sure that we're thinking about planning across the fundamental learning skills and making sure we're really embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives and sustainability into our programs. And then, as I said, we have a section that captures emergent curriculum or spontaneous learning, children's interests, and individual plans as well. So then we have a section in there that's for evaluation and critical reflection on the program or service operation as a whole. So there's 3 sections that we might write in there. Evaluation's more like what went well, what didn't, why we changed things. Critical reflection, is a bit of a deeper learning, thinking about how does the program, how are our practices aligning with the pedagogical practices of the framework, let's say, or how is our program aligned with the code of ethics or, some contemporary research. We might say, well, we might have introduced the free flow routine, but there's some elements we might do some research on to, tweak that. So that's where we record all of that stuff. So it's very much a one-stop shop, that program, and it's displayed in the room where educators and teachers can have access on it to write on that as we go. As we might evaluate things as we go, we might note those emergent learnings that happen, and it's also accessible to families as well. So I think that approach is something that's very workable for me. It doesn't, it's not onerous. It captures a lot of information. It meets the requirements nicely across all of those elements in Quality Area 1 and the legislative requirements. And again, reminder that there's no specific time frame. So find something that works for you. And again, work smarter, not harder. I don't take work home. I'm very productive when I'm at work, and obviously I'm working with older children. There are some times when I can jot some things down, and I do get some release time. So I'm very fortunate with that regard. But again, I'm really breaking things down to make them as simple and as easy as possible, reducing that administrative burden. So then my approach for individual children is like we have a separate template, but again, it captures all the stages of the assessment and planning cycle. And I aim to do one learning cycle per child per term. So they'll have 4 over the year. Obviously, I try and do more, and I might do those when I'm with the children, particularly if I'm trying to capture, remember what I wanted to write about. I tend to write those as not as moments in time, but also that idea that it's sort of a bit of a summary of information or a formative idea of what this child knows, can do, and understands. I set goals that are much more individualised for individual children, still map back to the learning outcomes, but things that are specific for that child, and some intended learning experiences that I have planned to do for them, and I collect that on a summary sheet for all children. So when I do my twice a term programming time, I've got all the ideas already written in there, and my template has the learning outcomes and key components at the back too, so I can just drop them in. So for me, it's all about, as I said, that efficiency. And then we also do a mid-year summative assessment that mirrors the transition to school statement. So it's an opportunity, again, we're in preschool, we only have those children for the last year prior to school. So the transition to school statement's a big thing for them, and the fact that we get to show them and talk about that sort of way we've measured their child's learning development and well-being in relation to the learning outcomes. And also it allows us to show that progress over time when we do the transition to school statement at the end of the year. So that's kind of what I have in individual children's records. And again, I think that meets the requirements nicely and is not very burdensome, I guess, for me. Even if you didn't get any release time, you could probably jot a few of those down every day. In terms of getting family input, we have a child profile sheet, which is in our Information from Families course, which asks families lots of information about their child's learning, things that they find frustrating, things that support their rituals and routines that support their well-being, what they find joyous about their child, what they are interested in for them to learn more. We have a mid-year, and hopefully we'll have an end-of-year one as well, parent-teacher, where we share the mid-summative assessment and then later on the transition to school statement. And we will talk about, where the child is at and talk about some of the goals that they suggested and modify them and add to them as we go. And lastly, in terms of children's voices, I try and ask each child at the start of the term how they would like to grow and learn and what sort of things they'd like to be better at, what they're interested in learning more about. If you've listened to our podcast a few weeks ago, Dialogic Drawing, I'm going to start instituting that from now on to try and capture children's voices and what their ideas and thoughts are about their own learning. But I incorporate their voices as well and amalgamate that into the goals that I'm setting for them. Again, those parent and child goals over the year, but also if there's a change or something that I can visually observe or hear that child is working on and persevering, I might add that to their goals as well. So that's kind of also that parent summary information and the summative assessment, the transition to school statement, all of those are kept as a record in that child's folder as well. I don't do any portfolios. I have limited pictures. I have a picture if it's relevant, so a child might have done some art or craft that they want to take home, and so I can take a picture of it, particularly if I might have annotated some information on there about how they referred to those marks on their page as their name or, representing ideas or concepts. So They're the only times that I use pictures. I'm not necessarily a hater of pictures, but I feel like there's a lot of time wasted in collecting, images of children, and I don't necessarily think it contributes to our pedagogical documentation. So again, use sparingly, in my opinion. And I should also, it's a little bit off topic, but I don't necessarily post on our communication app all the time when I want to share information about what the children have been learning and what they've been engaging in, particularly if, say, for example, it might have been Science Week and we were focusing on a lot of different experiments over time. I might share something then. So, over the course of a term, I might have posted maybe 5 times, maybe more, maybe less, and sharing some of the learning. I really focus in on helping make the learning visible for families as well. So, as I said at the start, if that's a lot for you to take in, I'm hoping your wheels are turning and you're thinking about ways that you might want to modify your own program. Obviously, no pressure if you don't want to, but if you're looking at ways to make things a little bit easier, and you'd like to do a little bit more research and see some examples of what I was talking about, we've got our linked courses in the notes section, so there's hyperlinks in there. But some of the courses that I really recommend, as I said, the information for families, because that has some great templates in there and some great wording that I use when I'm communicating with families about their child's learning. And we have 2 courses. We have more courses in our assessment and planning catalogue or bundles, and including critical reflection and things like this. But the 2 that I think are most relevant for this particular podcast are the cycle of planning for groups and the cycle of planning for individuals. So you can get copies in the handouts of my templates as well. So I hope that you have enjoyed this practice sharing episode of the Early Years Learning Hub. Don't forget that all our podcast listeners are entitled to 20% off at the checkout when they enter the code POD, P-O-D, 25. So I do hope that you also follow us so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.